Welcome to the David Angle Show. And today we're going to do a little storytelling and history. And it all starts when I was 16 years old. This is a true story. This is real life. This really happened. And I got my license. And my dad was so gracious, and he went out and searched out a car for me. It was a used car, but it was beautiful. It was a 1966 Mustang. And it was a gorgeous blue. It wasn't a deep, dark blue. It was a lighter blue. And in this story, we're going to learn some valuable lessons, and we're going to see what happened, because the story takes some turns and dramatic points and times, a time frame. And the date and time, we're looking at in the early 70s. At 16 years old. And I got the car, and he said, "This is your car to drive to school and, to be able to drive around and go to the library and stuff like that. But on one condition: you don't touch the car." It was a 6-cylinder, straight up Mustang Ford engine. And it had a fair suspension on it. And it had an automatic shift. It wasn't a 4-speed or 5-speed, whatever. And so I said, okay, that's good. And throughout that process of first getting the car and driving around a little bit, and it had gorgeous chrome on it, and it was just a beautiful car. Gorgeous blue. And I called up my friends, because I had some friends that were experts at building engines and building suspensions and new tires and new the mufflers and how to put headers on it and so forth. And so I called them over and I said, "You got to see this car." And so they came over and they took a look at the car, and they said, "What are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, we got to keep it on the outside looking as stock as can be. So we need all new tires. We need a powerful suspension. We need, leave the transmission alone because it works well. We need the engine beefed up with new carburetors and new exhaust, header pipes. And we have to, and we'll put some chrome on the end of the pipes and stuff like that, but we have to keep it as stock as can be, because it's got to be like a mini race car, but we got to give it the illusion that it won't look like anything has been really changed to it." And so we went through that process over a number of months, and we transformed that Mustang into a mini race car Mustang, and Holly car barrels and all kinds of stuff. And that isn't where the story ends. That isn't where the drama comes in. That isn't where the real story behind the story comes to play. Because I used to take the car to school. I used to drive it around. I used to go to stores. I used to stop at the library all the time and stuff like that. And when I was that young, I was very fortunate to have this gorgeous girlfriend. And eventually, I put her name on the back of the car. I actually had it engraved on the back of the car. And so it looked really cool. And my dad knew all the police in the neighborhood and said, "Keep an eye out for my son. Don't let them get too crazy with that car, blah, blah, blah. And so one time I let my girlfriend actually take the car out. She left school. She had to go home, pick up some supplies, and then come back to school. It was like not a long trip. Within a half an hour, you could get it all done. And she's driving the car, and the police pulled her over, not for speeding, not for anything, just to say, we're curious. What are you doing in this car? And she explained it to the officer, and she said, it's my boyfriend's car. He let me use it. I just had to go home. I just had to pick up some supplies for school, and I was coming back. And they said, that's fine. We just want to let you know, we know the parents of this car, and we know the son. And we were just looking out to make sure nobody was, like kind of grabbing the car and taking off with it. So I was driving the car for, 6-9 months at the age of 16. And then I met up with some friends. And all great friends, fantastic. Just great people, great people. But we're all car crazy people. And we were all, motorcycle people. And we drove motorcycles, and we drove mini bikes, and we drove all kinds of stuff. And we all loved creating fast cars. And so at night, I would go down in the park on a park road, and I would drive the park and turn off my lights and be able to drive the park in pure midnight and see how well I could navigate the curves and the turns and everything else without like crashing the car or anything else. So I got very good at driving late at night in the dark. And I'm not saying that's something anybody should do. It's just something, as young kids, this is what we do. And so I got pretty good at driving and doing, stunts and different things like that with the car. And one day we were talking, and I said, there's a road in Ohio that has an interesting hill. And you approach the hill, and it goes straight down, and it goes down steep. It's a steep hill. So it drops straight down, levels off on the bottom, and then it's straight up again, straight up on the other side of the hill. And for anybody out there that's ever done that before, you know what I'm talking about. You come down that hill, and you could come down pretty fast, and you got to be careful. Then you got to brake and then come back up that hill and come up with high speed and then come back on the top. And it's over a wide body of land here. And so me and my buddies, we were talking about it, and I said, this car that we fixed and we redesigned and built is pretty quick. And I think if we were careful enough, and I didn't say careful, I never use that word. I think if we tried it, we could drive the car on this road. Then the hill comes in, and if we're fast enough, we could actually miss the bottom and jump like an Evel Knievel stunt. My buddy said, I don't know, let's think about this. What kind of speed would you need? How far back would we have to go in order to make the jump? And I'd say, well, we'd have to be back a little bit, but I think if we go fast enough, we could miss the hill coming down and actually jump the car into a pattern where we catch it on the other side and come up the hill real fast. And so, in theory, for whatever reason, that sounded good. In theory, in like a crazy kind of concept and idea. And that really sounds like if we got enough speed, we could do it just like a motorcycle and jump it. And so one night, I don't know, it was probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. And the light was coming down from the sky. You know, it wasn't bright outside. It wasn't dark, super dark, but it was like becoming dark. And so a whole bunch of us piled into the car. The car was packed with a bunch of people. And we were driving down this road, this 303, Route 303. And we saw the hill, and we slowly went down the hill and up the hill. And we said, okay, that's an interesting hill. None of us felt any danger whatsoever. And to some degree, that's kind of like pretty wild, because none of us were nervous. None of us were thinking like that might be impossible to do, to actually jump the car in midair and then land on the other side and miss the valley. Like jump it as fast as you could and then miss the valley like a motorcycle stunt. And so what happened was, we get in the car, so what happened is we get in the car, everybody's in, we're ready to go. Nobody's wearing seatbelts, by the way. Back then, you know, nobody wore seatbelts. I had a good custom shifter on the floor. Even though it was automatic, I still had a custom shifter. And so you start the engine, and the engine is roaring. This is a 6-cylinder, but it's custom built with the right headers, the right carburetors, the right pipes, the right, you know, everything, the right valves. And my folks knew how to build all this stuff and make it fast. So it was pretty lightning fast. So we take off, and I want to say we were at about a speed of 95 to 98 miles an hour. And we come up on the hill, and we don't jump the hill. We actually come off the ground, and then the car comes down, and for whatever reason, the bottom of the hill, the car actually, for whatever reason, it had enough weight to actually settle down, and the back tires hit the ground on the bottom of the hill. And then I was able to, because it was swaying and it was moving and everything, I was able to straighten out the wheel and get the controls working right to be able to pull up the hill. And then we landed on the top of the hill, and like a half a mile down, we stopped and said, wow, that was not only incredible, that was extremely crazy. That was, I don't think any of us said it was super dangerous, because we just didn't talk that way. We just liked the thrill of it. And we stopped, and we're talking, and we're saying, and my buddies and I are discussing what went wrong, meaning why didn't we jump it versus coming down? What was it that we couldn't recreate this Evel Knievel jump? What was it that we were doing wrong? And we came to the conclusion that we weren't far enough back to start. And we weren't going fast enough with the engine, meaning we didn't have enough time to get to like 120 to 125 miles an hour to actually have that thing jump off the hill, and then instead of going down, jump off the hill and make it back up to the other top of the hill. Now, any physics teacher, any scientist, anybody that has knowledge in trajectory, anybody that has knowledge in propulsion, anybody has knowledge in, the way things do, the effects, the cause and effects, would probably say, based on the weight of the car, which was thousands of pounds, even a small Mustang weighed, based on the weight of the amount of people that were in the car and based on the thrust off the engine, jumping a massive hill, and that has a hill that travels almost straight down, and then trying to have it jump off the hill and make it to the other side in one piece might not be a good idea, and it might not work. Now, when you picture this, you have 16 and 17-year-olds all together saying that we've figured out the formula. If you back the car up at least a mile and go at full speed and get it to about 125, 130, and you hit the hill, the car will be going so fast that it will jump that hill and then have enough energy and propulsion and enough movement to hit the other side of the hill and end on the other road, on the other side of the hill. Now, I've never seen anybody in real life do this, but when you're high energy, when you're excited, when you have support from your friends, when you're all in it together, when we all have the same vision, we have to all have this unbelievable end result that's going to happen, because back then you didn't have iPhones and cameras to catch everything. We couldn't record it like I'm doing right now, but we had enough people that could testify to us making this giant leap and making this magnificent stunt work. The good news is, fortunately, not one of us was drinking. So that's great news. So we can't attribute this magnificent practice of driving under the influence of anything. Nobody was taking drugs. Nobody was drinking. None of that. We were all cool and we were all just having fun. We backed the car up over a mile on one side of the hill. Now this is where it gets real interesting. And it gets very tricky, because I launched the car at full speed and never took my foot off that throttle. Never backed off the throttle at all. We got to the edge of the first hill. The car leaped off the hill. That's how fast it was going. It actually leaped off. It never went like this. It leaped off. We actually achieved that jump to some degree. As it's jumping off the hill, the weight of the front end tipped. And unfortunately, I couldn't compensate for weight shifting and everything else. And so the car didn't leap like a motorcycle jump that you've seen in Caesar's Palace and arrive on the other side of the hill. It jumped off the hill and then it tilted and it went straight down. And it went down for a lot of feet. It was coming like a rocket straight down. And when it arrived at the bottom of the hill, it hit that ground so hard, it was like a tank blowing a bomb up. And then instead of the car just stopping there, it flipped about 8 or 9 times. And some people said it flipped from front to back, from front to back, from front to back. I don't know exactly how it flipped, because at the end, when the car actually stopped, it was upside down. And I didn't know, because I was in shock. and bleeding that my arm, because I used to drive with one hand to keep my arm on the glass. The glass was open, the window was open, and I kept my arm here, and my arm tucked under the car and scraped the cement as the car was flipping and rolling. So the car was on top of my arm when the car actually stopped. And there was blood everywhere on me. The fortunate thing about this crash story is that all my friends got out. They had some scratches, they had some cuts, they had some things, but nobody had nobody got killed. We all walked away, but every fire department in the world came out. Every ambulance, every police organization came out. They had to get the car off of me, and they had to rush me to a hospital. And when my brothers arrived on the scene, they said the car was unrecognizable. You couldn't possibly think it was a Mustang, a 1966 Ford Mustang with high-performance equipment all over it and a high-performance suspension. When I got to the hospital, after many, many hours, they said, "You're probably going to lose your arm." And what happened is my dad interjected and said, "Wait a minute, let's get the best surgeons in the world over here, and let's see what we can do before you make that final decision." And fortunately, I have scars. So I have the real scars from that particular accident when I was 16 years old, but I have full function of my hand, which is a miracle because I don't know how they put all the parts together. They worked on it for massive amount of hours under tremendous conditions, blood everywhere, tendons destroyed, main arteries destroyed, main everything destroyed, and I don't know how they put the parts back together. The car I never saw. They would never show me a picture of the car. They would never show me a picture of the scene. They would never show me a picture of anything because they said you can't handle it. That's how bad the scene looked. The lessons you learn, and you don't know this when you're 16 years old. You don't understand in a blink of an eye, you could be gone. This unbelievable vision and creative minds that came up with this idea, which was me originally, and then we all discussed it, to do this stunt over this unbelievable hill on 303, Route 303, and jump from one end to the other in air, and then land perfectly on the other side and drive away safe. When you look at it today, you just, it's too hard to even imagine, comprehend, or understand. But that's real stories. That's real life. I'm here today able to talk about this history, real life moment in time, and to tell all the, daredevils out there in the world that love to try all these wonderful tricks. Be careful. and make sure you're working with the best experts in the world to even attempt anything like this. The good news is I survived. It took me a long time. It took me a long time to survive this. I survived it. I was back to school. And, you know, it was the most bizarre thing because my dad somehow found this monster Pontiac, Bonneville, I think it was, big monster car that was so heavy, like 5,000, 6,000 pounds, and it was a monster, and meaning that if you crashed into it, you probably would survive. And it was another used car, but it was very, really beautiful. And when I finally, at some point in time, was ready to start driving again, he said, "That's your new car, and don't modify it ever." And so I never did modify that one. I just drove it. And that's really, you know, the moral to the story was, you know, when you're super young, you don't understand the risks of what you're doing, because the possibility of killing a whole bunch of people was very real. And everybody came out, everybody is okay, everybody's doing great, everybody, you know, it all worked out. But I was the one that took the hit because there was blood everywhere on me, including the damage to my arm. And that was no joke. So we close out. This wasn't meant to be, you know, the most exciting story in the world, but it was meant to bring real life situations that actually happened, and the time frames and the locations and the risks involved in doing an amazing, unrealistic, bizarre type of you know, trick, type of unusual, you know, stunt. That's the word I was looking for. This unusual, incredible stunt that I've never seen anybody do before. And yet in my mind, I had already visualized it to work perfectly. And it worked for the first time, but it was the most dangerous thing you can ever do. So I want to leave you folks right now. I hope you get something out of this story. I hope it somehow touches you. I hope it inspires you. And the next episode is going to be exciting. It's going to be storytelling. It's going to be truth. It's going to be, you know, real life issues. And it's going to discuss what happens around us. And so you have a great day and a great week.